still fresh in your mind. Yes?
So I understand the importance of being as aware as possible about intention. And my question is whether beneath every intention is there always a thought. Sometimes I can see the intention, but I haven't seen a thought previous to the intention. Sometimes I can see a thought and then an urge, but I'm wondering, am I missing when I see an urge and I haven't noticed the thought prior? Did I miss the thought?
It might not be a thought like some, letters there in your mind is an actual thought, but there's an impulse. So let's say a pain arises. So there's an impulse, a muscular contraction that's trying to resist that pain, and so it leads to the decision. But it may not be a logical word decision to move, because the way the body and the synapses and the muscles and all that stuff are all interconnected. A lot of it is just habits, muscular habits and so on. But still, it needs that. You can resist it if you wanted to. Because by watching that, you come to a point where, are you going to scratch the itch or not? You can watch it, and the longer you watch it, of course, then thoughts do arise. But when they come up suddenly, like you weren't aware of that urge to want to lift, even it happens so quickly. So a lot of things happen on very subtle, unconscious levels. But in the practice of mindfulness, we're trying to bring our attention down to those subtle levels where we could actually see, yes, there is that intention. But again, it may not be an actual thought, so you might be thinking that a thought is more than it is. Even the thought can just be basically a kind of an impulse. And that's what an intention is. It's kind of an but the more you dwell on it, then it turns into a thought. But the gut reaction is kind of just a, automatic kind of gut reaction. But then as it reaches the mind, then the mind is interpreting that action that then becomes more thought. But it takes a very deep level of awareness to really see clearly that process. But that's why as we slow down our movements, that's why it's a very useful tool within the Vipassana meditation practice, the intentional slow movements. A lot of people don't like to do it because they want to move too quickly, the habit of rushing. But the slow motion movement is part of the training in mindfulness, because it's there where you can see the intention. In that pause, like when you walk, the way a normal person walks, they don't see any intention to really lift the foot, although they have the idea that they're running and walking, so it's kind of there, but they don't see the difference between lifting and swinging, or from swinging to lowering the foot to the ground. It's impossible to see that when you are moving that quickly. But when you slow down and you put a pause, that's why in the deliberate practice, like I'll give you an example. Let's say there's an itch on the head and you want to rub it. So for being mindful, you would see the unpleasant sensation arising. And then you would see that kind of contraction of the muscles that indicate that you'd like to get rid of that. It's aversion. And then you see the thought about, Are you going to lift your arm or not? And don't lift it until you see the intention. When it builds up, the pain builds up too much, then you'll definitely see the intention. See, the hell with this bloody, mindfulness. Scratch. This crazy monk. Tell me not to scratch. So all these kind of thoughts are going to come in your mind. That's why the pause is good, otherwise they don't come up. And then when you lift, you do it inch by inch. So you lift, and then the mind knows that's not enough because of the spatial things in the brain. It knows that the hand is still some distance from the head. So unconsciously it's saying it's not enough, move some more. So it moves another inch, move some more, not enough, move some more, not enough, move some more, not enough. And you can actually see that occurring if you do it slow enough. And the itch is still there, so the desire to get rid of it is still there, so you keep on lifting the hand. Actually, desire is what pushes everything. The body doesn't do anything without a desire. So you keep lifting the hand up. That's the impermanence. It's not just one movement. It's a whole series of short little movements. Until it reaches and determines that's enough. And then there's the touching, and then there's a rubbing down, and a rubbing up, and down. Each is arising and vanishing. Up, arising and vanishing, down, arising and vanishing. And then there's the decision, that's enough. The itch has gone over. And then there's a desire then to put the hand back down. And it causes the finger to lift off, and then lowering, 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 putting the hands back, and rising, falling, breathing in, breathing out. And so that's the real powerful method of what's called body movement, the mindfulness of the body, in the movement section. Whenever you're bending, stretching, you do it with that kind of mindfulness. Knowing that it's just the habits that are doing it, no self or no I that's doing it. It's just the accumulated desires and habits that are... You think you are deciding to do it, but actually when you investigate it at that deep level, you realize it's just habits.
You were talking about the investigation of Dhamma, and with those examples that you just provide, basically my question is, we can say that the investigation of the Dhamma can always be, or sometimes happen in the daily life with this kind of awareness, that you have the moment, a blank space in your mind to process what is happening. Would you consider that also investigation of the Dhamma at different level of no meditation but a daily life time?
Oh yes, of course. These insights can come at any time. But if you haven't prepared yourself, if you haven't practiced in a more kind of conducive setting, then it's not likely that you'll come up with them during more active daily life. But once you've got enough insights, then yes, in your daily life, the slightest little thing, it could cause an insight to come to your mind, and even you find yourself kind of laughing at yourself for doing a stupid mistake. Like even injuring yourself, you go, oh, see, stupid, it's unmindfulness. So you can even laugh at your mistakes and other things, instead of blaming others or blaming yourself or getting angry. You can actually chuckle and laugh that you're unmindful and this happened. So yes, the insights can come.
Yeah, because through the practice of meditation, I have found that if I'm not sure if I'm correct, but I have gained wisdom, so I can recognize these moments, and I can, process that without reacting or responding so fast. So
That's the whole point. Most of our karma is occurring out there on the street, not in meditation. All our interactions with people and society, it's happening out there on the spot from moment to moment. You can't control. So we need our wisdom at our beck and call. We need it on Google. So we can instantly Google and get an answer. When we need it. Not what the Buddha say, let me sit down and meditate first. Oh, no, we don't have that luxury out there on the street. We have to have this, our understanding on instant recall. And so that's what the training in meditation is. It's developing that repertoire and that filling the mind with this kind of understanding that's just there under the background. So if something happens, it's like obvious. You don't have to stop and think too much about it because the wisdom becomes sort of automatic.
Can I ask, sort of follows what you're talking about, I think. So in the Eightfold Path, I'm just curious what you would say about the order that the Eightfold Path is in, because the wisdom ones come first, and then Sila, and then Samadhi. And I mean, I know it's not meant to be practiced in a linear way, but I was wondering if you had something to say about the order of that.
Oh, no, I usually mention that too, even though the popular version is saying, calls it, Sila, Samadhi, and Panya. But in the Eightfold Path, right understanding and right thought comes first, and that's the Panya group, actually. And so, but that refers to the 3 levels of wisdom. So you start out by, reading or hearing the Dhamma, and that, because otherwise you hadn't heard the Dhamma before. And so, you get a little bit of intellectual understanding. So that Panya comes first. But then that motivates you to start practicing Sila. And then as you practice Sila and calm down, you see that your meditation improves. And then as your meditation improves, that means your wisdom is also getting deeper. And so that comes around, and because of the wisdom getting deeper, you see where your Sila gets better. Because you see how you can close up the loopholes and the holes in your Sila. You gradually start, working on that. And then that because of that, your concentration gets better. There's less guilt, worry, remorse, and fear. And so it keeps forming a loop, a feedback loop like that. So yes, the wisdom comes first, but that intellectual level of wisdom. And then it's the Sila and Samadhi that help develop the deeper the Bhavanamaya Panya levels of wisdom. When you talk about wisdom, you have to keep in mind those 3 levels. But usually refer to the deeper level of the Bhavanamaya Panya, the deep insights, the insights into emptiness. But even the insight into no self from an intellectual point of view can lead to reaching the state of Sotapanna. But that only eliminates the view of the self. It doesn't actually remove the actual existential experience of the feeling of an I there in the mind. But it's an illusion, even though it's still there. Even though before you knew smoking was bad for you, back in the 30s or 40s it was glamorous, everybody smoked, and before they developed the microscopes and the surgeries and took out black lungs and all that, and then only then people started seeing, smoking is bad for you. So at least they have an intellectual understanding smoking is bad, but they keep on smoking because of the addiction, right? So it's the same way, when we meditate and we gain an intellectual understanding of the Dhamma and meditate and have that first glimpse of the transcendence of the ego, and now we're convinced that the ego is an illusion, but it comes back because of the deep ingrained nature of it. But at least now we know that it's an illusion, So at least we can make better efforts at not letting it go overboard and cause us a lot of suffering. But it's still there in the back of the mind, the urges and desires and so on. But gradually we work on those too, in the rest of the stages to weaken them. Did you have a question?
Yes, Bhante, I had as you mentioned the importance of intention. I would like to ask for your advice or feedback. A few months ago, we had a monk in Paris visiting, and my sister lives in Paris. I'm here, and at some point I wanted to offer him shoes because he needed new shoes, and I asked her, could you please, I send you the money, could you please go with this Bhante and buy him new shoes? And she answered back to me and she said, you put me in a very embarrassing situation because I'm so busy. I'm having family visiting, I'm having so many things to do, so you put me in a very embarrassing situation. So I just did not answer. I knew that my intentions were not to put her in an embarrassing situation. My intention was just to try to help this monk. At the same time, what I saw is that my sister, who doesn't meditate, was still dealing with thinking that everything comes from outside, that it doesn't come from her, dealing with seeing more deeply what is it that is troubling her, or what is it that is preventing her from doing what she can do or wants to do. So what I chose to do was just not to say anything and just ask my older sister if she could help. But sometimes I do see intentions. In this situation, I saw the intention of my sister, and I was a little bit uncomfortable with it. At the same time, it was not like my place to teach her something, but it felt like I really wanted also to try to help her by telling her, we really all need to look more deeply within and understand that it comes from us. It doesn't come from outside, the way we feel.
I mean, this is the perennial problem. I mean, we run into that situation all the time, that people misunderstand each other's intentions, and the people that don't understand the Dhamma, we can't try to force our views on them, because it'll just wind up getting you more frustrated. So we tend to think that because we understand the Dhamma, that everybody should understand the Dhamma easily too. But then you realize that it's not the case, And so you have to learn how to just back off and just realize you're trying to force your Dhamma view, which may be correct, but still the other person's not in a position to see that, so therefore you're getting frustrated and you're suffering because of that. So we also have to understand that and be aware of that, of our intention to want to do good, but at the same time you have to be aware of the situation. And even the Buddha refrained from doing things at some time because he saw it was not the right time to do that, or tell a person something. Like there was an example of at Savatthi, where the Buddha lived for 25 rainy seasons, and he gave many thousands of lectures, discourse from Savatthi. So many thousands of people used to come and listen to him. But there's a farmer who lived outside of the monastery who used to kill pigs, a pig farm. And they used to hear the squeal of pigs going for slaughter even in the monastery. And then people say, the Buddha, why don't you convince that guy not to kill pigs? The Buddha. And the Buddha said, he's beyond saving. He didn't bother because he realized he's not going to do it. I mean, that might sound like not very compassionate, but the Buddha understands a lot more than what we understand about people in the mind. So we do what we can, but when we see that that comes to a point where we're making ourselves miserable, then that's when equanimity comes in. So drop it. Let somebody else get the monk's shoes. It's not your duty. You live over here in America. Let the French people buy him shoes. Don't worry about it. If they don't think he should have shoes, why should you worry about it? I mean, if it comes to that point, so it's... Okay, I think that's enough for that. We still want to have a good meditation period before the end.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.